Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Mismatch. So many of us aren't struggling to get dates. I'd say we're struggling to get past the first one. We're dating, we're open, we've done the work, and yet we find ourselves, right back at the beginning over and over again. And I'm saying this as someone who is single again, who is actively dating and genuinely looking for my match. Not just chemistry, not just potential, but something that is real and sustainable. So today I'm asking, well, how the hell do I do that? And well, my guest, Jaydi Samuels Kuba, a Hollywood matchmaker and relationship coach who's worked with actors, creatives, and high achieving professionals. She's worked with everybody and they look like they have it all, but often those people too struggle with real connection. And in her new book, Your Last First Date, she breaks down the dating patterns that quietly sabotage relationships and why most of us aren't necessarily failing at love. We're just showing up in ways that once kept us safe and are hindering us from, moving forward. So let's get right into it. Jaydi, how's it going?
Hi, it's great. I think that's the best summary of the book I've heard so far.
Awesome. Nailed it. Good first impression. No, it was awesome. But before we get into the book, I want you to tell listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and how you got into Hollywood matchmaking. Like, those are two things that I don't think everyone necessarily puts together. And when they do, they're like, oh, that must be interesting.
It's certainly interesting. Before getting into Hollywood matchmaking, one has to get into Hollywood, right? So
yeah,
my initial ambition was actually to write movies and TV shows, and I did some of that. Yeah, that was my career for over a decade before I shifted focus into matching colleagues, essentially. Looking around, I got my start on the show Family Guy. Seth MacFarlane was someone who helped sort of shepherd my career I was a PA on his show. I could talk for 20 minutes about how I became his assistant, but
we need to do another episode on that because that's so cool.
Seriously, it's a really fun story, but it took a little while and some maneuvering, but became his assistant for about 5 years. I had a front row seat to everything from the Oscars to the private jets to having access to so many industry people. And it's just, I noticed not only were my coworkers struggling with their dating lives, but people in his orbit that were, the A-listers and everything. And so it was just, I always was a natural connector of people. And so instinctively was like, okay, I have to help all these people. How do I do it? And turned my pursuits over into matching these people instead of just writing lines for them to say in movies and things. And so that's kind of where when everything shifted. And I still do both, but now I'm able to marry my passions, right? I help people get together and I write about it all. And so that's been a joy of mine, figuring it out, entering into my 40s, how to combine everything I love in terms of hobbies and interests and now, full-time jobs. So it's a joy. And yes, feel free to pick my brain.
That is legitimately the coolest thing I have ever heard. I have a million and one questions for you. First I want to ask you matchmaking. So were you always this type of person that puts people together, and are you good at doing it for yourself?
Sure. So actually, yes. So my husband was someone I matched 5 times. So, and that's part of the book too, but I set him up 5 times before I was in a relationship when I set up the company. So it's not like I met him and I was like, there's my husband. I'm very loyal when I'm in a relationship. And so when I met Dave, I thought, oh my gosh, great guy to match with, these women that I'm currently trying to set up. And so
that's so funny.
I put my best foot forward. I tried getting him a wife. It turns out that was me, but I didn't realize all this until I became single. And how good is a matchmaker, or I should say, how good is a matchmaker's database if you can't match yourself from your own database? So it's the only time I asked out a client. I will say that. I typically keep it professional, but I just had a hunch, and my hunch was right, and I'm so glad it was.
That is the coolest thing. And I love it. It's a very sweet story. Now, part of the clientele, Hollywood, everyone thinks It must be so easy. Like, you're surrounded by all these successful, beautiful people. Like, how hard could it possibly be? And yet we hear about like breakups and divorces constantly. So, like, how hard is it? We're not alone. Us regular people are not alone in finding it hard,
My
right?
gosh, no. If anything, sometimes it's harder, especially, and listen, the bread and butter of my database, it's more likely to be somebody running a studio than the Brad Pitts of the world, although we have, representation from all different pockets of Hollywood. But every single client that I work with is an extremely busy professional, so dedicated to their craft. And so it's just very difficult between the travel, being in the public eye in some cases. There's a lot to juggle, and everyone is scrutinizing their every move. And so I can tell you, in a lot of cases, there's times where I'll make an amazing match, but when someone's on a movie set for 6 months, it's very hard in the early stages, in particular of courtship, to keep that relationship going successfully. And so, and there are other professions where people travel for work and everything, but they're not in the public eye in the same way, which adds a whole other layer sometimes. And so there's just a lot of layers to it and complications. And that's something I try to help my clients navigate.
So you basically like date all these people to figure out who they are and what they're looking for, and then match them with someone, obviously. So like, how does that process even like begin to kind of happen? Because, well, I'll tell you honestly, just like, some guys think that they want a certain kind of woman, and then they get the woman and they're like, no, can't handle her, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So like, how do you like navigate people and what they're looking for, but what they're actually looking for, or what they can handle?
I know, that's such an important distinction, because so many times,
right?
Yes, people come to me, my business partner Lauren, and they present a certain way, and it's not until we start setting them up that we're like, wait a minute, you seemed all polite and shy, but actually like you're kind of a bad boy, or whatever that thing is that's different from how they are showing up on dates and how they present to us. And so sometimes it takes actually seeing them in action in order to take a step back and say, wait a minute, we were thinking of XYZ for them, but like, I think this is actually more who they are, what they're looking for, especially since our company is run by two women. Men in particular, I think, can sometimes take a hot minute to really open up to us and want to appear more open sometimes than they are in reality. Happens with women too sometimes, but less. And so it can take a few swings to really hone in on what someone's looking for. But statistically, we are very good at reading between the lines. The strength of the matches always increase after a date or two. And so you just have to be very perceptive in this field and not take everyone at face value.
Yeah. Oh, you're good. You're good. I need you.
We'll sidebar after this.
Okay. We're going to sidebar after this. I want to transfer over into your book, The Last First Date, because I love the title. I think it's so cheeky, but also there's so much to it. How do you know when you're dating in a way that someone is dating like that? You know what I mean? Because there has to be intention behind that before you, like, you don't want it to be just collected experiences, let's just say.
For sure. I mean, in terms of somebody's intentions, to fill out the extensive intake interview we have clients fill out, and then to meet with us for an hour before we start setting you up, that is a lot of work when you can just go on Tinder. So, everybody that we work with, and also we work with referrals. And so everyone we work with is very intentional about being set up. But once in a while, we will encounter someone who's maybe fresh out of a relationship or a marriage, and they want to be ready. They tell us they're ready. They seem ready in the meeting. And then again, we set them up on a date and we're like, I don't know, buddy, like maybe let's wait 6 months and we'll try it again. It's always a fine line of figuring out, and that scenario in particular, do we, I was going to say pounce, that sounds horrible. No,
not at all.
We're the predatory matchmakers out there. Do we jump into, oh, we heard this guy's available. Do we grab him now because he might meet the love of his life at Starbucks tomorrow? Or do we wait until we're certain he's emotionally available? And a lot of the times we make the decision to wait. and then we'll approach them and actually they met someone the week before. So you never really know. You can only go by what someone is saying their intentions are, and then we'll kind of assess. We'll take a step back if we have to. But if someone tells us they're ready, we throw them out there. We try to find their match. And then if it seems like they need a little bit more time to cook, we take a step back and we'll reassess.
So when you know to step back and let them cook, what is something that tells you that they're like emotionally capable to go past a first date?
I think recognizing that maybe they weren't initially, it's the ones that deny it where I get a little bit skeptical. And look, some people really are ready and then it's a non-issue, but I would say the times we've had success with getting people fresh out of relationships is when they go on a date on their own or through us. But let's say they meet someone on their own and they hit us up and they say, I'm so sorry. I value your time. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I just went on a date on Raya or what have you. And, it turns out that I'm not as ready as I thought. So the self-disclosures.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's always really helpful. There are times though where just based on their behavior, maybe they're talking about an ex too much on the actual date. And we're like, hey,
red flag.
Yeah, let's do a check-in. Are you sure you're really ready? And I'm talking about very few cases, but I know you brought up intentionality, and this is the time because people are referred to us and go through such a process. That's really the only time when someone is fresh out of a relationship that, we can't always take something at face value.
For sure. One of the things I loved in your book was that you outlined specific dating types, like the love bomber, the stiff. Why do you, and what I struggle with is, why is it so easy to identify somebody else's, but then I'm looking at them and I'm like, where do I fall under?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you approach the book this way, because my hope is not just readers, clients, friends, whoever is struggling out there with their dating lives. That is the biggest barrier from going from single into a healthy relationship, is recognizing, what is it about me that how could I show up differently? Or how have I been showing up, to just even recognize what that is and make necessary adjustments. There are so many people who need to up their flirt game or increase their confidence or get out of work mode or whatever's holding them back. But there's also people I meet on a regular basis who, and I suspect, we'll get into it, but I suspect maybe you fall in this category, where all those things are great. Like, you actually are showing up great to dates, but it's not always how you show up. It might be what you're looking for is not what's actually healthy for you. And it could be that you're overlooking the right matches. Like, just your picker is off. So there's so many people that need to just look inward and say, like, yes, is it possible that you just haven't met the right person yet? 100%. But is there something that's holding you back from doing that? And that's where I come in.
For sure. Yeah. They say it often. You got to look at yourself in the mirror. You're a part of the relationships that you've been in as well. So even though you're perfect, there are probably some things you could be better at.
Listen,
moving forward.
I have a high opinion of myself, and I say this, in writing, when I look back at what I could have done differently, yes, was I way too formal on first dates and not relaxed enough and giving off the wrong energy? 100%. But did I also, even though I was a serial monogamist, did I stay in the wrong relationships for way too long? Yeah. And it kept me from meeting the right person. And so that was something that I needed to reflect on. And we all have our journeys, but anyone that's saying, like, I'm perfect, I'm showing up perfectly, I'm looking in all the right places, I don't need any help in that department. I don't care how amazing of a catch you are. I feel like maybe there's a disconnect where you're not really looking at your journey the way I would have liked to when I was single. It's a lot easier when you're on the other side and you're in that healthy relationship and you're like, oh, this is, what I was looking for. This is how I should have been showing up.
Right. And in the book, you talk a lot about emotional pacing, not oversharing, not withholding, but at the same time, knowing like when to reveal what. I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, because they just want to get it over with, It's like you want to be on a date and you just want to spill everything out so that you're not wasting your time and money or like your heart,
It's so common. And yeah, there's people that overshare, or they maybe show up, because I think what you're describing is manifested very differently in each person. Some people, they're like, I just want to tell you my whole life story. And then they feel, as they're opening up in the process of being vulnerable, they feel like they're really emotionally connecting with somebody. And that's not always the perception or that other person's experience on the receiving end.
It might be just you yourself feel that way, but not received on the other end.
And then there's other people that put people on the defensive. They want to get the answers right away. Like, when do you want to have children? How many kids do you want? When are you going to be ready for marriage? And a lot of times people don't know until they're in that situation. And so it could feel more like an interview than a date. There's a woman who I actually just had a coaching session with about an hour before this podcast. She's not the right demographic for this. So I think it's okay to share. She showed up, or tends to show up, to her first date with a list of prepared questions.
No.
Yes. Not about like sperm count or anything gnarly like that. It's more like deep, soulful, thought-provoking questions that she thinks will generate good conversation topics. And this particular woman has a tendency to fall so hard so fast. And so I let her know, like, look, I'm okay with questions that you prepare ahead of time. Save it for the third date. The first date, it needs to be light. You need to just go have a good time. And you need to say, is that person right for me? Am I attracted to them? If they're checking off all those boxes, go to a second date. Hopefully you make it to a third. Then bust out any question you want. But, you need to win them over at the beginning, and a list of questions ain't going to do it.
Yeah, it's like start off slow and then you can rev up speed with your questions and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or the level of intimacy that you're getting into. Now, something else that you wrote is that not all sparks are good. Because they can sometimes burn the whole forest down, which I completely can relate to. So how do you decipher like the good kind of chemistry? Because I've also been on dates where I'm like, wow, this guy was so nice, and like checks off a lot of boxes, let's say, but like I didn't feel like, I don't want to, I need to be on a date with someone and like want to grab their face and like kiss them. I won't, but like I want to feel like that.
I'm also
what
okay with you grabbing their face and kissing them. Let's be clear. So yeah, there's no such thing as bad chemistry. All chemistry, in my opinion, is good. You want that. Is it a requirement for a first date? No. But is there a scenario where having chemistry is going to ever be a bad thing? It's not. Where it becomes negative is when you step back and you look at the whole picture and you're not only considering chemistry, where we're looking at your emotional connection with someone, your intellectual connection. Okay. Are you sharing values? What's their communication style like? So those sparks, not in and of itself are bad, but they can burn a whole forest down if the other accompanying factors are not in alignment with you and what you're looking for.
At what point do you really ask yourself that question when, like,
the third
things
date.
are so hot and heavy? Let's just say third day, okay?
I feel like the third date is such a turning point. The first date is like I said, you keep it light. Do I have chemistry with this person?
Yeah, and you're putting your best foot forward, right? It's like light
don't
conversation.
Don't get into kids, religion. Just go and have a good time. If you're meeting online, you maybe know those things anyway. Second date is like, maybe you're not sure about some things and you're like, okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll go on a second date. If you make it to a third date, or that person makes it to a third date with you, then it's like, okay, there's potential here for something greater. That's when you get into the heavier stuff.
Okay, makes sense. Now, you also compare dating to casting like in a lead role. But how often do you find that people fall in love with the idea of a partner rather than like the person themselves, or the idea of like potential of who someone can be and not actually like what's in front of them? Asking for a friend.
I think the majority, who could this friend be? I think the majority of the time that is the case. That was certainly my case when I was single. And I actually think for people who are even married, they're still holding out hope that person is going to live up to that expectation. And so there's plenty of people that are also in the wrong marriages. I think that it takes a lot of maturity. It takes a lot of self-reflection probably some therapy, but getting to the bottom of what is it I'm really looking for, and are there any mismanaged expectations here? Whenever you're disappointed, it's just because you set up an expectation that you or another person didn't meet. And so I forget who said that, but it's so true. And
It's so true.
yeah, I would say the majority of relationships that don't work out, that usually plays a factor.
I have a question for you. Do you mostly deal with men or men and women?
It's impossible in my line of work not to deal with well, I don't want to say equal amount because I work with the queer community as well. But in terms
Awesome.
but in terms of actually setting up, let's say, heterosexual couples, just statistically,
Yeah.
I can't set up a woman without dealing with the man, right? So generally speaking, demographics aside, it's about the same numbers in terms of matchmaking. When it comes to coaching, I probably, if I were to look at my current roster of coaching clients, it tips a little bit heavy on the female side. But that said, my male clients I adore, and there's a large number as well. It's probably like 60 to 70% women at the moment and 30 to 40% men. It also changes like any given month.
For sure, for sure. I asked that question, JD, because I have found that single successful women have a very hard time finding like a match on for like numerous reasons, whether it be like a power struggle thing or a like a money thing. There's often a feeling of like I don't know, the intimidation sometimes that certain men won't even approach women like that. Is this something that you've encountered, and how do you like boost the men to kind of like the good ones that are just afraid to like muster up the courage to like, approach women like that?
Yeah, so it completely depends on the woman and what she's looking for. It is an issue, right? I'm not going to deny that it is absolutely an
Makes
issue.
me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, the majority of women I work with are strong, successful women who have achieved a certain amount of professional success and are now turning their attention to their personal lives, and they're finding that the men are just not measuring up in terms of wanting a counterpart that's bringing the same thing to the table. I think that yes, when I coach the men, if they don't fit that definition of what that woman thinks she's looking for, I have to remind them, there might be other factors they bring to the table, or it just depends. It's such a case by case basis. I think in some cases, women could stand to be open-minded to men who maybe make a little bit less money than them, but they're super hot, or, they're going to be a great dad. They're just so kind. Or maybe it's the funniest person that you've talked to in a long time. If they're bringing something else to the table that's outstanding, then I don't think it has to be completely equal in that category. That being said, I also do coaching with men to remind them the benefits of ending up in a relationship with a successful woman. They can feel intimidated, for example, if they're renting and the woman's a homeowner. But also, I coach tons of guys that are excited by that or are not intimidated by that whatsoever. And it's just a question of finding that and being patient and going on dates with guys who aren't the same way until you meet the right one. So it really just depends what you're open to and what you're looking for. And as long as a woman brings that to the table, I support her journey in trying to find a counterpart that matches her in that respect.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. Part of, I guess, matching people and even, relationships in general, there's an importance of value alignment, of course, and identifying what that is. How do you navigate values in that some of them might be the same, but also there are like nuances and like layers to a simple value, like family oriented, for example. You can align in being family oriented, but there are deeper level questions to ask someone where there still might be like misalignment, even though the main value is the same, if that makes sense.
For sure. I have a client that was recently just got out of a relationship with a guy who was the best uncle and has a huge extended family, and they get along so great, but was unsure if he wanted his own children, right? So you could be family oriented and not want kids, and maybe there were assumptions made because of how he is with children, but doesn't in fact want some of his own. So, and also, let's face it, this day and age, we're living in a time period where everything is so layered and nuanced and complicated when it comes to certain hot button issues. So making sure you're on the same page, it's so important to have a partner who supports what your life vision is and what your hopes and dreams are for yourself. And so 100%, that might sound nuanced to you, but to me, that's actually like a huge overarching category that is a must to suss out in the early stages of a relationship, even before you become exclusive with someone.
Like third date?
Honestly, yeah. By the third date, you should get a sense of, is this person feeling intimidated by what I do, or are they going to be my biggest cheerleader? I do think that's something you actually can suss out by date 3.
Okay, done. Moving forward, that is something I'm adopting most certainly.
Perfect.
What do you say to single people nowadays, Jaydi? Like, especially with like the saturation of like online dating and the swiping back and forth, like what do you tell people of like how to be hopeful and really like find your person?
I mean, first I have them sign up for a coaching session.
Duh.
But the phrase that keeps coming up, I want to say it was Sex in the City, maybe, about your taxi light being on. I think that, I think that everybody, it's so natural to just get jaded with, like you said, the oversaturation of where do I look for someone? Is it on this app or that app? Do I go to the matchmaking festival in LA coming up? Like, where is my person going to be? But the second you stop looking is when it becomes problematic. I know that it's very hard.
But that's when they say it happens, is when you stop looking.
Yeah, so I actually have an entire chapter in the book about this hypocrisy, because
tell us.
Well, they say like stop looking, that's when it's gonna happen. But if you stop looking, I'm sorry, you are not findable, right?
That's how I feel. I feel the same way.
Yes, I think that what people mean by stop looking, if you really unpack that, what they really mean is when you are secure with yourself and your life and what you bring to the table, that's when it's going to happen. So many people
stop chasing, maybe.
Yes, you need your taxi light to be on. You need to energetically be someone that people want to approach and they know are available. But you also need to have inner peace and feel like life is not over just because you haven't met your person. Right? There are a lot of people that feel like their life hasn't even started because they haven't met their soulmate yet. You need to feel like, oh my gosh, life is amazing and I feel complete on my own. However, I do feel like my happiness will be increased by finding my person. I think it's okay to acknowledge that and it's okay to look for that. But if you're waiting for the other person to make you feel like now it's time to live, that's not good. Right? So for me, I like making my examples personal. For me, that metaphor, it took place when I got out of a very toxic relationship and I had like a fuck it attitude. You know, I'm so relieved to not be in that situation. I will ask out my matchmaking client because I don't give two fucks, right? So that is
like, I got nothing to lose at this point.
Like, he doesn't want to be part of my company because I was unprofessional. Like, he's not hitting it off with the women I'm introducing him to anyway. Good riddance. But I just had this energy of, I do not care. I am so happy to not be in the situation I was in before that I owe it to myself to just enjoy life. And that confidence that I brought into the room. My husband jokes now. He's like, you are completely, not in a resentful way, but he's like, you're not at all anything like what I thought when I first met you. He thought I was some like hipster in our intake interview. I don't know. He said something about what I was wearing that day. That's not like me at all. Nothing against hipsters, adore them, but it's just not my vibe. He also was like, you're way dorkier than I thought. Like, I think that on our first date, I just strutted into that restaurant and into his car. Like, you know, he came to pick me up. Like, I was on top of the world because that's how I felt. And I didn't need him to make me feel that way. I remember at that point, he had said to me, you know, we were dating for a couple months. We were driving around Santa Monica. And he was like, what's the deal? Your brothers live here and I've never met them. And I was like, but you're not even my boyfriend yet. And I wasn't saying that to trap him into, because what he said after that was, well, I should be your boyfriend. It wasn't a setup. I just really felt so good about who I was, and I wasn't afraid of pushing people away by saying the wrong thing or trying to please someone when it wasn't something that suited me. And that energy, it has the opposite effect that some people shy away from, like, oh, I might be too this or too that for somebody, but that confidence is actually what's going to draw someone in. And so it's unfortunately not something you can fake, although I do think the same way if you smile, even when you're not happy, there's actual endorphins that will be released, and maybe eventually it will make you happier. I think it's the same. If you're single and you're depressed about it, go out with your girlfriends, take yourself to the movies. Don't wait to live your life. And eventually you will actually love your life, and someone's going to want to be a part of that, undoubtedly.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I really appreciate you saying that. I've done like a bunch of solo dates around the city where I grab a book and go sit at a bar, and I've made so many new friends along the way. Like it's like the funniest thing of like how you attract certain people. But also the confidence thing is huge too. It's like when you really believe and you're good with yourself is like when you attract the right people as well. So
for sure,
there's an energy. It's an energy.
So when you are, I'm picturing you at a bar with your book, are people interrupting your book to say hi? Are you setting your book down and turning to the person next to you and initiating conversation? How does that typically play out?
I mostly don't initiate just because it's just not my personality. But having said that, like I will rest it down, like take a sip. I'm not on my phone because I don't want to look like I'm too busy and like in a different conversation. So I like, do the eye wander, grazing the room, and then someone will be like, "Oh, so what book are you reading?" That's like the opening line traditionally.
This is textbook. I think that listeners really need to like write this down in a notepad somewhere, because a lot of times women in particular think it's enough to just show up somewhere. And it's not.
No.
I used to think like, okay, like I'll get cute and I'll go to the grocery store.
I look hot. I'm sitting at a bar. People are going to come flock to me.
Guys are intimidated. I don't care how confident you are. Guys get intimidated, and also they get lazy, because let's face it, they could see you across the room at a bar, not know if you have a boyfriend or not. And so do they walk over to you? Do they walk those 6 feet? Or do they just swipe on an app and talk to women they know 100% are single? Even confident guys, sometimes they just take the lazy route. And so it is so important to look around, to be smiley. And, even if you're not initiating conversation, I do think some people are not great at the looking around in an intentional way.
It's uncomfortable. You're alone. It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
For sure.
And for those that have trouble pushing through it, or for those who maybe aren't as great with their body language in terms of expression, I do actually advocate for women initiating conversation. I think
would you, like, if you saw like an attractive man kind of sitting down, you'd like go up to, you'd encourage someone to be like, get up and go over and say hello?
Absolutely. I think there's a difference between going over and saying hello versus asking them on a date. I think once you make it clear, like, oh, like I'm interested in conversing with you, even if it is initially in a platonic way, the fact that they're getting that attention and they have that opening that you're providing them, if they're still lazy at that point, get rid of them.
That's your sign. Yeah.
Walk
right back on over.
Don't go so far as to, although listen, I asked out my husband and I'm married with a beautiful daughter and I love my life. So I'm not saying don't ask men out. I think there's situations where it is perfectly appropriate, and I'm a fan. Or women, by the way. I don't mean to target this specifically.
We were talking hetero, that's why.
But you should feel comfortable initiating conversation. If they want to read into it, they will. And if it doesn't lead anywhere, that's fine. But I think just showing up is not enough.
Love that. We got to put in the effort. The work's still got to be there.
Right. On both sides.
On both sides. Jaydi, this has been so much fun. I feel like I could talk to you all day.
Same.
Where can people find you and follow you and purchase your book and the whole nine?
Yeah, for sure. So my book is available wherever you typically would buy your book online, and of course in a bunch of stores as well. And then my website, www.lj, I'm dating myself that I just said W.
Not at all. Not
people
at all.
just say ljmatchmaking.com, right? If I were actually in my 20s still. So ljmatchmaking.com, L for my business partner, Lauren, J for Jaydi. LJ Matchmaking is my business, as well as my coaching arm. And then on all handles across social media, I am at Match Made in Hollywood. So feel free to hit me up. If you're in the LA area, we have a couple fun book events coming up. So yeah, check me out on Instagram. And I think I have all those links in my bio.
That's super fun. I actually might be coming down to LA sometime, so I will hit you up for sure.
Yeah, please do.
I will. Thank you again so much for your time, and congrats on the book and all the best.
Thank you. Thanks again for having me.